Hello and welcome back, or welcome if you're new. If you're new here, my name is Elena and I am the homeschooling mama to 3 kiddos. Here on the channel, we talk about everything from homeschooling to homemaking, a little faith and fitness, and anything else that could possibly fall in between there. Today, I guess, is one of those in-between things because we're going to be talking about books. As a homeschooling mom, I don't always have all the free time that maybe I'd like to read. I like to read. It's something that I've done since I was younger. I do enjoy reading as an escape. It is kind of a break for me. So sometimes I'm either reading a ton or I'm not reading at all. And so I really wanted to do some of these, like what I thought of the books, or give you kind of a summary of the books that I was reading versus some of the other videos that I have on the channel. Here is just what I'd like to read or what my reading goals were. I will link some in the description box for you if you want to catch up and kind of see my booktube-ish videos. I don't know, videos about books. So I thought what I would do is just as I finish books, I would go ahead and record really quickly my thoughts on it, as quickly as I can, my thoughts on the book, and then when I had enough clips, I would just put them all together and put them out for you. So that's where we're at here. I just finished 2 books within the last couple of days. As you can see, we are in a season of reading. I also noticed too, because I like to read for a little bit of an escape, that when my anxiety kind of swoops up to a higher level, I will carve out more time to read because I need that little bit of escape, that little bit of mental vacation, if you will. I just keeps me off social media, and which can be a big trigger for me, and keeps my mind elsewhere. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you know what I mean. So the first book I'm going to share with you that I finished, just recently finished, is The Bride Test by Helen Hoang. This is actually the second in a series. I read them a little bit out of order. I will list the first book up for you somewhere. I finished reading that, I think earlier this year, or possibly even late last year, but I do think I think it was earlier this year. And I really enjoyed it, and I was super excited to see that our library had 2 more books that were by her. It's a trilogy, but really you can pick up any one of these books on their own and read them out of order, which is kind of what I did. I read The Kiss Quotient first, which is, I believe, the first in the series. And then I picked up her 3rd book, which is escaping right now, and I can't run down and go grab it because my kids are mildly entertained, and if I run down there, I might miss my chance to finish recording this. But I'll put a picture of that one up for you. I finished that one too, and then I finally finished this one. To be honest, I really liked the 1st and 3rd book the best. I thought that this one was really good too, and this one actually made me cry. So in her books, she writes about her main characters are characters that are on the spectrum, opening that world and just kind of seeing as adults the difficulties that they could face and things like that. So the author, Helen Hoang, was diagnosed with being on the spectrum, having Asperger's, and she writes her main characters also on the spectrum. And I just found this really interesting and just eye-opening in a lot of ways to see a little bit deeper look on the thinking and how some of the difficulties that they face as adults. Her books are what I would consider romance books, so if that's not your thing, then you may want that kind of warning. And there are scenes that are a little bit more graphic, but her stories around it and just how she dives into these characters is really it's really thoughtful, I think, and I really enjoyed diving deeper into their thought process, the character's thought process, and kind of seeing things from their view and the views of those close to her main characters. So this book, like I said, it was a little bit harder for me to get into in the beginning because I think that a lot of that romance was right up front. But as I continued on in this story, more towards, I think, like the last 100 pages or so is really where it broke me down, and I had a few tears. Just seeing the main character's struggle, or one of the main characters. So this book is about, I think it's pronounced Kai. and he is on the spectrum, and his mom is in search of a wife for him. She wants him to settle down already and find a wife and give her grandbabies. And he feels like he doesn't have the capacity of normal human emotions. He feels like that his heart is made of stone. He references that multiple times, and there is a little bit of a backstory of why he has that phrase in his mind. And it just kind of talks about some very real things that happen. There is death in here, and there is love and friendship, and it just is, I thought, a great way of diving into that world. Like, I don't have a better phrase for it. I wish I did. I hope I'm not being offensive. But I thought the story around it was sweet, and I would recommend the book because it is part of a trilogy. Like I said, though, I feel like you could read it in any order and not be completely lost, but the characters do intermingle of the 3 books. And so you get to take a look at 3 different characters, but you also will see characters from the previous books in these books. I did read it out of order the last 2, but it didn't make that much of a difference. The other book that I just finished, I literally just finished and then picked up the camera, was Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. And so on Storygraph, there is a fairy tale challenge. I will try to link it down below for you. And at the beginning of the year, I went ahead and joined that. And every month they give you a different fairy tale, and you can either read the classic version of the fairy tale or a retelling of it. I really enjoy retellings of fairy tales, and I also like the villains when they do the backstory to the villains and things like that. And so I was excited to join this reading challenge. This book is actually for the month of June, which is The Little Mermaid. And there is a second book to this one, Sea Witch Rising, I think, or The Sea Witch Returns. I'll figure it out, and I'll get a picture up too. Now, because we are on a pretty strict budget, most of the books that I get are from the library, and that's kind of how I go about looking for my challenges, to see if my library first has these books, and if it's a book I really, really want to read and they don't have it, I will check like used bookstores and things like that first. But thankfully, my library did have this retelling, and they had the second one too. Because I just finished this book, I immediately was going to pick up the next one, but I think I'm going to give myself a little break because I really like happy endings. I like when the story ends and there's a nice tied bow and there is some like peace and comfort in it, which is probably why I read, for an escape of the news and things like that. But this one, there was some heartache at the end of the book, and some books need that. I get that. Not every book is going to be, you know, the Hallmark movie ending, but like I said, I enjoy those. I am all about the Hallmark movie endings, and Hallmark movies too. But so I did enjoy the story of it. The story follows 2 young girls and their friend, and their friend happens to be the prince of the island that they live on. And I think it's an island. It sounds like an island. Anyways, this coastal region. One of the young girls drowns when she's little, and it kind of just follows the story from there. And then you do get some flashbacks to their childhood and kind of leading up to present day events. I don't want to give too much away, but this is a retelling of The Little Mermaid, and the last end of the blurb on the inside here says, "The rise of Hans Christian Andersen's iconic villainess is a heart-wrenching story of friendship, betrayal, and a girl pushed beyond her limits to become a monster." And yes, to all of that. It was a story about friendship. It was a story about betrayal in a lot of different ways, or at least 2 different ways that are coming to the top of my head right now. And there were some twists and turns that I was like, oh, I didn't see that. But maybe as you read through, you'll catch it sooner than I did. But I did think that it was a good story. I thought it was a good retelling. I enjoyed it. It didn't take me long at all to read because I wanted to know what happened. I needed to know more of the story. And that kind of happens with a lot of my books. I will either take forever to finish them because I don't like to DNF books, or I will just hurry and like gobble them up because I need to know the rest of this story. Though, like I said, I'm not going to pick up this second book just yet because I need a little break, I think, from the drama of it. And I want a really good, like, feel-good story next. But what I'm picking up or continuing on reading is I'll be there, but I'll be in sweatpants. And that about sums up me. This book is a nonfiction, and it is by Amy Weatherly and Jess Johnston. And like I said, I did start reading this. I'm not very far into it. I'm just about to start chapter 4, which begins on page 41. But already I am really enjoying this. And this book is about finding unfiltered real life friendships in this crazy, chaotic world. As you may or may not know, if you are a subscriber on this channel, and here is my little call to action. If you're not a subscriber, what are you waiting for? Now's a great time to click the subscribe button along with the bell notification right next to it so you don't miss any inspiration amongst our chaos. But this book here, let's talk about this chaos and this world of chaos. It was labeled as self-help, but it is about finding friendship and just being really honest with yourself and being honest with those around you, and just seeking out. So far, this is what I've gotten from the 3 chapters I finished, right? So far, there is a little bit of call to action at the end of chapter 3. It gives you things to do to both strengthen the friendships you have, and then to find new friendships if you need it. And now, if you may or may not know, I think this is where my thought process was going before. We moved about 1.5 years ago, and I still don't feel like I found my tribe out here, or my squad, or my girls, whatever you want to call it, right? Like I haven't found close set of friends out here, and that is a lot of it is due to me not really going out and searching though. And I realize this, it's been hard for me to cultivate a community when I'm not going out in the community, and that is because the last 2 years have really done a doozy on me. This is suddenly got very real here on the video. But the last 2 years have just really done a number on my mind and anxiety, as I'm sure that other people can relate. It's just maybe something that we're not talking about all the time. But this book touches on how, as a society, we are so anxious and worried and suffering from depression, and how so many of us feel lonely and don't feel like we have a really close confidant or a really close group of friends, or even 1 or 2 close friends, and that we're all feeling this loneliness, but we're still going out and just doing small talk, or we're still saying I'm fine even when we're not, because we're afraid to dive in a little bit deeper with people. I have kind of, I don't know if it's a problem, I feel like it is sometimes, where sometimes someone can just ask me something and I will just vomit out all my real feelings. Like there's no holding back. Someone will be like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, you know what? It's really hard today. And I'm like, oh, you didn't want to know that. You needed to, I'm fine. So we're all here and feeling these feelings, but we don't want to, I don't know, maybe sometimes we don't want to burden the other person, or we just feel like they're just looking for an I'm fine answer and they're not looking to dive in any deeper. But how we're all walking around lonely and not reaching out to one another. And so I think that this book is just going to dive into that and let us know, like, it's okay. It's okay. And here are some steps you can do to find some friendships, and to really be the friend that you are looking for, because it's a two-way street, right? Like you can't just expect other people to be the friend that you want when you're not reciprocating that. Does that make sense? Anyways, like I said, I'm only in chapter 3, but the I'll be there, but I'll be wearing sweatpants talks about being very real with your friends, and just being kind of a very authentic version of you without the airs and shows that sometimes we will put on first. So, and that's it. I'm pretty sure my time is up with my kids being mildly entertained. So I'm going to sit down with them, and I'm actually going to dive in and see if I can read a chapter or 2 before it's time to make dinner. I'll check back in and let you know what I've been reading. Okay, it has actually been a couple of days since I finished Sea Witch Rising. I think that's the second book that I said I wasn't going to start right away. I only paused for like a day, and then I was like, I got to know the rest of the story. So I picked it up, and I finished it. I finished it pretty quickly because, like I said, I just wanted to know the rest of the stories. I'm really like that with series. I like series, books, in a series, and but I want to know the rest of the story, and that's probably why I like series so much, because they let you expand on the stories and the characters and things like that. Anyways, I thought that the second book was give me the ending that I was looking for. So it kind of continued on into the story, and it about, oh my gosh, I don't want to give too many spoilers in case you want to read it, but about, I don't know, maybe halfway or even a little before that, something happens in the book to one of the main characters, and you're like, what? How? And what are you going to do with the rest of this book? Because you still have a lot of pages to go. And I wasn't sure where the author was going with this and what was going to happen, but I was very pleasantly surprised with it. I thought it was a good book. I thought the sequel was good, and like I said, it gave me the ending that I kind of was looking for. It just made more sense, I guess, in my head to me. And so I didn't think that it was like, this wasn't a 5-star book for me, but it was definitely like 3.5, 4. So it was a pretty decent book. I am still continuing on with I'll Be There, but I'll be wearing sweatpants. I've gotten maybe halfway through, I would say. And then I've also picked up Fairy Godmothers Inc. by Jenniffer Wardell. I also picked this up from our library. And this story is about a fairy godmother, as you would imagine, but the fairy godmother works for Fairy Godmothers Inc. And so some of the reviews on Storygraph have said that it kind of is like a fairy godmother, a fairy tale retelling meets Fortune 500 company, something to that manner. So far, it's been okay. It's not something that I've like devoured and just want to know. I feel like it's just okay, which doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just okay. I don't know how many times I can say that. It follows along a fairy godmother who is not quite like all of the fairy tale readings, I guess, that you would believe fairy godmothers are to be. So this is a young woman. She works for Fairy Godmothers Inc. and she is assigned a very special project or a very special case. It is our very own Cinderella, or Relly, she goes by short, and she is actually not what you would think Cinderella would be. So there's a little twist on her also. And in her arranging for Relly and her Prince Charming to kind of meet and get together, it also kind of is following along in the fairy godmother's, what is her name? Kate. Kate is the fairy godmother. So it follows along Kate's adventure and kind of tells the story from her view. It goes back and forth between telling the story from her view and Prince Charming's younger brother. And so it goes back and forth in their point of view, and just... So far, it's there's definitely a connection between the younger brother and the fairy godmother, but she is on a mission, and of course, being about halfway through this book also, there's been a wrench that's thrown into it, and Kate is fearing that her heart is going to be broken. And so I'll find out what happens next, but I just wanted to give a quick update on Sea Witch Rising and let you know that I'm still finishing up this book, but I've also picked up this book, and then we'll see where we go from there. Okay, I just finished reading I'll Be There, but I'll be wearing sweatpants. And I have to say, I thought this book was good, but there were a lot of parts that I found myself kind of skimming over because I felt like it was starting to repeat itself. The beginning of the book had me cracking up. It also had me in tears. There was a very touching story in there. Towards the middle and getting to the end, I felt like it kind of had said all it needed to say. The gist of the book is to put yourself out there. Don't worry, there's other people that are weird like you, and you just need to find your other weirdo friends too. In the sense that we all have these quirks and different things about us, and we all think that there are things that we do that no one else could possibly do, like staying in our sweatpants all day. She does dive in deeper and say, or there's two authors. They do dive in deeper and talk about how there are also differences in friends, and we need to be mindful of that and have some sort of grace for one another. She does, towards the end, they talk briefly on that friendship is not a cancel culture. You get one shot to make it right, and if you don't, you're out. And that friendship can't be like that, that you need to be able to speak openly to one another and be able to hear as well as to take whatever the problem may be. So if you have a little bit of a disagreement or something, you need to be able to speak to it, and you also need to speak up. And so I did find that there were some really great stories in here, really great analogies. It made me laugh, like I said, it made me cry. And there are bits in here that just had me screaming, me too, and I wish I was closer to these authors so we could be friends, because it sounded like we just had so much in common, right? But I did, like I said, I'm glad that I picked up this book. I thought it was funny. I thought that there were points in here that were great. It did make me step out of my comfort zone, or at least help me step out of my comfort zone, and start trying to speak up a little bit and speak out to other women in my community to try to make some friendships. And so I am thankful for that, and I think I will continue on that. But that is it. Editing me, I was realizing that I didn't end up telling you how the Fairy Godmothers Inc. book went. And that's because that's kind of how the book went. It was just kind of like, I finished it. I didn't want to DNF another book, so I kind of pushed myself to get through it. It wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't something that like I would say you need to run out and read right away. So it was okay. It passed the time. And I don't want to, I hope that doesn't sound too harsh, but it, like I said, it was just okay. It feels like towards the end, she just needed to wrap up the storyline. And I know that on Storygraph, there were some really great reviews for it and some and mine was more of a eh. So that was it. Let's finish this. I think this is a good place to end the video on that note. Because I'm sure as I piece all these little clips together, it may end up longer than I had intended the video to be. So if there's a book that I find I didn't end up wrapping up, I will do it on the next reading wrap up. So make sure that you are subscribed and have the bell notification hit so you don't miss that. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and getting the recaps and kind of summaries of what I thought of some of these books. If you have any book recommendations, I'm always looking for more to add to my to be read list because it's not a mile long already. I always need good book recommendations. If you haven't been told today, you are deeply and truly loved and so appreciated. Thanks for hanging out with me and thanks for watching this video.